Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Jug Show. So, this one's a bit overdue here, but we're going to talk another full series again. Luckily, this one's only in 4 parts. We're talking Marvel Fanfare. No, not Marvel Fanfare, Fantastic Four Fanfare. So, with the Fantastic Four Fanfare, this was trying to capitalize on the popularity of the movie at the time. So, they decided to create a short series of small Fantastic Four stories, different writers from over the years. Some of the stories are good, some not so good, some kind of mid, but they all had something to offer, which was something that was really great about this particular series. In fact, because each book focused on individual character, on some like each one had a individual focus on which member of the four, each one actually managed, at least one of the stories in each book manages to capture the absolute essence of the character. So that's the stories I want to talk about. So we're not going to go through the entire thing, but we're going to talk about each. We're going to have each book, and we're going to go through the story that I think encapsulates each character the best. So, with fanfare number 1, we're going to be talking about Johnny Storm. So this one is mainly focused on Johnny. We had its 3 stories. The first one, that one was definitely just more or less for giggles. This one was just a little bit of fun. It's just Johnny messing with Ben, and Ben's supposed to keep his temper under wraps. So yeah, this was just having a lot of fun. I think it was also mainly more to the benefit of the artist, who was Ramon Rosanas, and this one was written by Mark Waid. And the fact is, with Mark Waid doing one of the best and funniest Ben versus Johnny pranks with the big thing balloon and just splashing on him, it's hilarious that he decided to do just a funny prank one. But that's not the main one that I want to talk about. My main one is the second story. While the story of the third one does also capture a lot of who Johnny is as a person, who is a very sensitive individual, it just wasn't the one that caught my eye. It's funny, it does get Johnny, but the second one that I think really understands a bit more of Johnny as a person. Those two really do understand Johnny, but this one's just my choice here. So if you prefer the third one, I totally get it, but I just prefer the second one. See, a lot of things that people think about Johnny is that he's a bit of a womanizer, but that's definitely not true. He's actually a very sensitive young man, and he's actually been through a lot, and a lot of that doesn't really get acknowledged. But the fact is, he's always the first person to make the sacrifice play, as we saw in the famed Hickman run, when Johnny was willing to actually take on almost the entire negative zone that actually did lead to his death and resurrection, and a whole cycle of that scenario for in a undetermined amount of time that he spent in the negative zone. So the main part of the story is the fact he starts off as his childish self. He's just being Johnny. He a bit immature, but he does take the situation seriously. He's a bit hot-headed, but he knows that these things can be dangerous. So he can't flame on at the moment because the tunnel is full of methane. It's full of flammable gas, and he could get them all killed. So he does take it seriously. He just stops, and we check out this alien artifact, which has tentacles. No one likes tentacles. No one. And they also have to deal with these aliens here. So we don't actually know what the device was ever for, but it's probably makes sense that this was a colonization type of, a starting point of an alien colonization and invasion. And because Johnny doesn't like the fact that he doesn't like it when his family is in danger. When his family is in danger, he will do what he has to make sure they're safe. So he takes the device that are attracting the aliens, goes deeper and deeper into the cave, and explodes. He sets alight the methane gas that just destroys everything. He's trying to get out, and he knows he probably can't, but he's willing to take that chance. Johnny will always be willing to take that chance. He will be willing to sacrifice everything for his family, and this book really does encapsulate how far he's actually willing to go, and how powerful he can actually be, how immature he can actually be. But this is just a good version of Johnny. This is actually Johnny, and I think this book, this particular story, actually encapsulates that very well. It's very simple, but it does actually get to the point. So kudos to Alan Davis for actually managing to pull this one off. It's very simple, to the point, and it actually does understand Johnny. So, moving on to the second issue of Marvel Fanfare, that would be of Reed's book. Now, a lot of people probably would have thought that it was going to be Jonathan Hickman's story, which was the first story, and that was going to be like the ultimate Reed book, like because he does like apparently like what people think. Well, not in my opinion, but people have a very high opinion of Jonathan Hickman's Reed, and he does do a good read. He does do a very intense read, but it actually wasn't even really a Reed story. I remember reading somewhere once, Hickman said he's done his thing for the Fantastic Four. I'm okay with leaving it where it was. He was probably going to do his little thing with Franklin, but, he never got around to it. There was a whole... Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. That's a whole other thing. So it does make a little bit of sense to me that he decided to move off into something a little bit more fun. Just did a bit of a horror thing. I do find it disappointing, though, that he didn't go full body horror with Reed when he's up against Marvel's version of Pinhead and the Hellraisers. I mean, that was just a massively missed opportunity to me. But the second story, this is also the second story again. This is absolute pure Reed. So Reed is doing this thing where he is sending himself through messages through time about things that are going to come up, so he can, premeditate and actually take down the threats. That's typical Reed. He doesn't like dealing with surprises. He wants to know everything that's going to happen so he can take proper steps to get the best possible outcome. And it's hell for him. Because being a superhero, you have to deal with disasters, which can pop up at any time. You have to respond to these things. Like the police, ambulance, firemen, they're not there at the absolute. They can't save everything and everyone because they don't show up when the actual event starts. They show up when they get there, which means they're reactionaries to it. Reed doesn't like being a reactionary. He wants to know what is going to happen and when it's going to happen. He wants to schedule it. But so he makes this device, and then suddenly it just stops sending messages, and he can't figure out why. So even with these family moments, these nice little family moments, we're just having breakfast, we're doing all this, we're doing all that, and he's still mulling it over. What I like about this is that I totally actually get this, because people actually do go through this, not on this level, but there have been times when I have lost like a small little token or something. It's not even important. I might have to leave soon, and I kind of just want it. I don't. It's not even that I want it. I just want to know where it is. So I tear everything in my place apart, just trying to find it, and I just can't find it. And I just keep saying to myself, "Okay, I really should go, but I want to find it, but I really need to go." Reed is puzzling over why the messages could have stopped. He's trying to figure out all these different types of things. So he's letting everything enter his head, every scenario into his head about what possibly could happen. So he does all these equations. He goes full Reed. He locks everything else outside of himself and laser focuses on this. He talks about any kinds of threats. He talks about maybe destruction of the device. He then starts taking on these threats. He makes lists of things that probably could have stopped it. So, and then he takes on those threats in what I have to admit is one of the best depictions, artistic depictions of crashing out with autism or any form of neurodivergency. When everything just starts getting chaotic in your head, when nothing's making sense, everything that you take in on the world is just smashing and you can't, and everything just crashes in your head, just yelling and screaming, and you just get this whirlwind and it just won't stop. This is an amazing artistic depiction when it comes to Reed and what it's like inside his head, trying to solve a problem that he just can't figure out. And then he finally figures it out. He doesn't, I'm not even sure if he technically figured it out, but he just crashes. He's done all he possibly can, and he's just ready to fall apart. And in that moment, we see Doom, we have T'Challa, we have Tony, and it's for the funniest reason, and it's also the most Reed of reasons. This is because this is total Reed. He will keep things. Reed does these things to keep his family safe. The problem is he forgets that who he's actually keeping safe. Meaning, he forgot that it was actually Valeria's birthday, and he didn't want to forget. He's been looking forward to it. He's been excited about this. And protecting his family is the whole reason he does these things. And he just completely forgot, and he feels so bad about that. And then he just realizes in that moment, he actually discovers why he stopped receiving messages. It's simple. He stopped. He just didn't want to. He didn't want to see these moments anymore. He didn't see a point. He just doesn't want to look anymore. He doesn't. He wants to be surprised. He likes being surprised, and it's just so sweet. It reminds you that this guy, like it said in the movie recently, the recently released movie, he doesn't dream, he doesn't wander, he just lets all the bad things in his head. And he didn't even realize that the reason why something might happen, why something might seem scary, might actually be good. So he just stops on his own. He learns a lesson a bit here. And it's a great Reed story. It's an amazing story. The artwork is phenomenal in this particular one. I won't lie, I wasn't exactly a fan of the third story on this one. It's just it was one of the meh ones. So yeah, it was okay, I guess. So yeah, we're going to skip over to the third one. The quick coming up of of the other stories. You just have Tom DeFalco writing about Sandman with the Thing, because this is Ben's book. So we got Ben and the Thing. No, Ben is the Thing. You got Ben and Sandman, who people sometimes forget they were actually really good friends. Sandman isn't really that bad of a guy, and they're just kind of hanging out and all that. And they just show these two being heroes, saving this family that have actually been on hard times. Because that's really Ben. He's the hero type of guy. He's always willing to help, and he's also willing to help people realize how much of a good person they are. He likes how getting people to feel better about themselves, because he's been there. He's been massively down the dumps, but then he's had his higher moments. And then you got the third story, which is just a funny story between him and Johnny, about Johnny thinking he's got nominated to be the hottest guy in the universe, and then you got the whole thing happening. You got some weird panel of a naked Johnny. I mean, I don't even know if that was either the artist or if that was the writer. I don't know whose decision it was, but at the very end, we all learned that Ben is the hottest person in the universe. I mean, we already knew that, but it's just nice to have it on paper. The first story, though, the one that I want to focus on, I'm going to just outright say this. I think Dan Slott is easily the best writer for Ben Grimm that Marvel has ever had. I will admit that his Fantastic Four, while have some good moments, it had a lot of pitfalls. It felt like he didn't have a direction. He just kept coming up with all these arcs and stories that honestly he thought was going to link together, or just like it didn't make sense in the end, and it felt like he was just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. That's not a good way to do it, especially because he had a lot of stuff he could work with, that he could focus on, that could have really built on, which would have been amazing. But when it comes to Ben Grimm, Dan Slott is second to none. His Ben Grimm solo was amazing, and this particular story really understands Ben. This is how Dan Slott does a great Ben. Not only does he do Ben, suffers from this type of thing. Like he's written almost like he's got a standard form of writing. He's always like either the tough guy or he's the guy that doesn't like how he looks. The three Ben solos that we've had since the return of the Fantastic Four in 2018 has been, focused on his looks and self-esteem because, he was broken up with Alicia, that type of stuff. Is dealing with his sensitivity type of side. Then we got Clobber in Time. That's obviously a tough guy thing. It also really kind of depicted him not as intelligent as he actually is. I really didn't like the fact they used that earpiece when he's actually a very intelligent individual. And then you got the current thing, Solo, which is essentially him being John Wick. Does that sound like a cool premise? It does, but at the same time, it's still very surface level. Like we know, Ben's the tough guy of the family. So there's a lot more to him that we can delve a little deeper in. Dan gets that. Dan doesn't sacrifice all those type of things. He doesn't sacrifice the fact he's very sensitive. He doesn't sacrifice he's the tough guy. But he knows that there's more to Ben and drills into that. He actually drills into his past, not just of like being this tough kid from Yancey Street. He tells the story of what happens after Yancey Street when he goes to live with Aunt Petunia and his uncle. And, he's also revealing that Ben had a hard time leaving Yancey Street. He was still a fighting kid at heart. He still fought with other kids. He was violent. He had a lot of energy. He didn't have a goal, and he's just an angry kid. And that's when his uncle Jake takes, because he's a doctor, takes him to the Air Force, the local Air Force, because this is what Ben becomes. This is Ben's story of falling in love with flying, and I think this is something that a lot of writers don't really focus on. I work with somebody that actually he actually knows about these things. He actually knows about like all these type of things that can go into the military, like when it comes to flying, comes to shooting, when it comes to all these different types of things. And a lot of media doesn't really understand how much work and brains goes into these type of things, and how much you got to like all the physics you gotta know, all the situations you gotta know, all these mechanics you gotta know. This is why I love the scene of when he's talking with this pilot, with this test pilot, and because this only really got appreciated first time I've seen very recently in Ryan's run, and it's great seeing Dan say you gotta be smart. Sure, you gotta have the will and you gotta have the guts to do what you gotta do, get in the plane. But you gotta have the brains. You gotta know the physics. You gotta know the chemistry. You gotta know the engineering. These guys are geniuses, and they're trusted with $1 million. No, this probably no, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment here. Experimental equipment. You do not just give these guys this stuff to just some dude from the street. Okay, you gotta really earn your right to be in these things, and writers still like keep doing these things of treating Ben like he's just this blockhead. And it drives me crazy. So it's great seeing Dan on him again, because Dan gets how deep Ben's character can really be. If you don't believe me, read his solo. It's literally when Ben finally had his bar mitzvah. He really respects Ben's Judaism. He respects his childhood. How is it... It's incredible that Dan Slott really gets Ben on this level. And in fact, he actually understands Ben so much that the fact that it's not Ben's a tough guy, it's the fact he won't give up. It's a very, like, there's the tough guy and there's the won't give up thing, okay? And they're both very massive story tropes, especially in superhero comics. So the fact that they keep doing the wrong thing with Ben, it drives me crazy. The best part of the story is the fact that Ben doesn't appreciate just being given passing grades, even though he knows that he shouldn't have actually passed it. He's honest, and he doesn't appreciate dishonesty. He doesn't appreciate just flying by because he's good at something. He's good at football, and he's on the football team. He doesn't want to earn these stripes this way. And he's frustrated because he wants to get into the planes. He knows he needs to get in there, but just by simply passing, because he's good at football, is very frustrating. Because if he fails, and then he has to try again. And he's more willing to try again. He's more willing to have this stuff cut off and just say to his face that you're failing, so maybe you can do better. But he's not getting that. And then you got Reed here. This is a great part of their relationship. Reed's going to teach him. He's going to tutor him. Reed loves academics, and he loves teaching his friends, and he loves his friends. So he's not only is Reed going to teach him, he's not going to be nice. He's going to push him, and he's not going to let him quit. And Ben was never going to quit. And then you have this great scene of how Reed still feeling responsible. Because one of the lines I don't think some writers even appreciate with Ben as well, I know Dan does, is Ben yelling, "My hands are getting heavy. He can't pilot the ship." Ben has had a hard life. But the idea of taking flying away from him, being this rock pushed onto the earth, it would have been hard. So we got these scenes of Reed building the plane, making sure that it's all made for Ben. Because for starters, planes for test pilots, they get their own individual planes. But the actual cockpit is made for their backs, their bodies. That's also the way with race car drivers. All these type of very fast, powerful machinery are made for individual people. That's how it works. Oh, sometimes with media, I just don't really appreciate when they keep doing these things and it's not for the specific individuals when it actually always is for the specific individuals. Oh, jeez. Oh. So it's great to see Ben's passion for flying take center stage. That it's not just he's the pilot of the team. He has been focusing on this since he was a kid. His best friend helped get it back, helped him get to it, and then get it back. It's a very good story for Ben, and the good story of his relationship with Reed. And yes, and of course, it's done by Dan Slott, because no one gets Ben like Dan Slott. Then there's the third book. I am not talking about the third story in this one. The second story, though, that was actually rather nice. I would have preferred a bit more Sue focus, but, it was definitely a story. It was a family story. Sue shown brighter than the rest of them. And it was actually a lovely story. It was just the family, how they reacted to the Franklin being conceived, the news about Franklin's coming. It was very nice to see a family reaction to it. And it was just nice seeing them being social, being everyone partnered up, everyone having a day, and they were all just talking, going back and forth. I really like a lot of Sue's dialogue. I like a lot of Ben's dialogue. It's great dialogue. But the reason I want to focus on J. Michael Straczynski's story is because I believe it perfectly encapsulates Sue as a person, and one of the reasons why, even though she has shown she can hang with the most powerful beings in the cosmos, doing things like taking on some of the most powerful mages and even destroying celestials, why she isn't spoken in the same kind of tone as you would with Aurora Monroe and Scarlet Witch. These women are like they bend the universe, and despite the fact we have seen and it's been implied about how powerful Sue can actually become, why she's never really gone to that level. It's kind of given us a canonical reason, and which could also lead us to a future story that could actually build off of this, especially because J. Michael Straczynski is going to be writing Sue in an upcoming Captain America story. I don't think she's going to get too much focus, but, the thought's there. So we'd start with Reed and Sue doing experiments on her force fields and how powerful they can be. The line that really, we have Reed talking about how it should be more powerful than what she's giving because it's not connected to her body. It's not a full-on physical thing, and which makes sense. She's projecting the energy from hyperspace. That's how it works. She's connected to hyperspace. The energy flows into her, and she projects it with her mind. So she really shouldn't actually be feeling anything from it. Or what she does feel shouldn't, it really shouldn't have a limit. And then we get this line that really does actually, I think, explains pretty well why she has a limit. It's generally strong enough to meet just about anything that gets thrown against it. I feel like this is meaning that Sue makes the force fields as strong as they need to, but she doesn't want to go into how strong she can be. She doesn't feel the need to be more powerful. She doesn't feel like she has to be this great and powerful being. Or she just doesn't want. And the thing is, I feel like that's telling about about her sense of self-identity, her sense of self. Because if you look at Storm, you look at Aurora Monroe, you look at Scarlet Witch, a lot of their lines deal with "I am the goddess," "I am the Scarlet Witch," all these type of things. They connect this power with their sense of self. That seeing how powerful they can be, learning how powerful they are, and accepting they're this powerful deals with a sense of self. From the looks of things, Sue doesn't have that kind of same feeling. She doesn't go around saying, "I am the invisible woman," type of thing. She doesn't really have that kind of sense. But she knows who she is as a person. And that person is a caring individual. The person who will take care of everyone else. That's who she's always been in the Fantastic Four. She's the one that's going to check up on each individual member, make sure everyone's okay, help them be okay, and then make sure they can all stay together. She's the heart of the team. She's the glue that keeps them together. And she just shows unimaginable levels of kindness. And you can see that next part when you have her going to Mole Man. And she's telling the story about the Phantom and the Opera. And how you can actually see that how she viewed it differently than her parents. She was they were all they wanted they liked the Viscount, they viewed him as the hero, the Phantom is the villain. How she relates to Christine Daae of going back to the Phantom. About the ideas of understanding who the Phantom is, understanding people. She's an archaeologist because she likes understanding people. She gets people. She understands other people. This is both a good quality and not a negative quality, but how would I describe it? This is former Sue that is a great personality to have. Someone that you really could wish more people were about. She's undeniably a selfless being. She will put everyone's needs before her. She will go to other people before she will think of herself. But because of that, she has no sense of self. She doesn't look in the mirror and say, "Who am I? Who is Susan Storm? What am I about? How powerful can I get? How strong can I get? How smart can I get?" She doesn't have that sense of pushing herself. She doesn't have that sense of "I can do better," because she knows because she has all she needs to be what she needs to be, what she thinks she needs to be. She doesn't look at herself and think, "You know what? I want more. I want to see what else I can do. I want to take on these challenges just because I want to see if I can." And it's an interesting characteristic. And we know how powerful she is, that she can be powerful. She's destroyed Celestials. And we see here that she's actually incredibly delicate with her powers, too. She's very accurate. I put this up, and some people kept saying, "Well, we had this character doing this." I'm not one for arguing online. I just stir shit up by posting crap online. But the difference between what they were showing me and what we have here is that I described it that she just walks into rooms and destroying tumors, because that's what she did. Other character moments of dealing with this type of stuff, they using their powers, but they're being slow. They're focusing real hard. They're doing these things where they're teaming up with another hero. Everyone's doing a little bits to focus on getting this thing out of a body. She walks into a room, gets him in his eye line, She's seen where the thing is, and even if she didn't get see the X-ray, all she would do is like turn him invisible for just a sec, and pop there, tumor's gone. She's very experienced. She's very fast. She's very accurate. She is in control to the point of a hair. She is insanely in control of her powers. She has insane motor controls of her abilities, especially compared to other heroes out there. It's amazing to see, and she is willing to help these other people, especially the Mole Man, who has offered her nothing but contempt all up to the point in her life. And that is very confusing. He's a very chaotic character. But she's willing to give him this chance. She's willing to think and hope that he can actually be a good person. And it's great to see. It's great to see this type of side of her. It's great that this story got its push. That this is Sue's big story of fanfare. And even weeks after, it's still in my head. Because this is just an amazing way of telling who this character actually is. She's a powerful character. She's got this motor control of her powers that are just insane, and she's just unbelievable when it comes to how much she cares and likes and understands people. I just can't stop thinking about it. J. Michael Straczynski did a great job on this. He teased the idea of how powerful she can actually be. Teased the ideas of why she's not as powerful, how she can get this bit more powerful. And it's not about like the idea of being selfish, it's just about understanding who she is and who yourself are. Like when you ask yourself, it's almost like when you're a kid and you ask yourself, what do I want to do when I grow up? Who do I want to be? What do I want out of life? These are the type of things that we could really use for a Sue Storm story. What does she actually want? Who does she want to be? All those kind of scenarios. Very self-inward looking for the character. And that would be an amazing story to see. I would love to see it. And we could really see Sue growing from that. I really hope we get that story. That would be perfect for a solo story for Sue Storm. So those are the 4 big choices of Marvel fanfare. The Life's a Gas by Alan Davis for Johnny Storm. The Future Uncertain by John Tyler Christopher for Reed Richards. Fight or Flight for The Thing. And Ain't No Grave by J. Michael Straczynski for Susan. 4 very good stories that perfectly encapsulates each one of the individual 4 characters. I would love to see stories for these 4 of like these particular ones expanded and with the knowledge of these particular characters. It would be amazing to see. It would be fantastic to see. So yeah, wrapping up. 4 great stories. The books themselves, some of them had okay stories, some of them had bad stories, and you had your 4 really good ones. I do like Jonathan Hickman's one with the horror icons. Something is just missing from it. I think he could have gone a lot crazier, honestly. I'm wondering what it would have looked like if Ryan wrote that book. We've seen that he's not afraid of going real freaky when it comes to the Fantastic Four. Well, Christopher Cantwell, he actually wrote the Fantastic Four Road Trip, which was all based off body horror. So really, yeah, that's like my biggest critique. Because like, sure, you got the story you got the Clobbering Time story by Daniel Warren Johnson. I still can't get over that. That's like it was like every misconception of the Fantastic Four wrapped up into a single story. Anyway, yeah, so the horror story by Jonathan Hickman, I think he just could have gone a little bit freakier, really. Go a little nuts. Go a bit crazy. Go real freaky. But the 4 stories were fantastic. I loved them to death. And this was actually a really good series. And it was definitely the stories were good interpretations of the Fantastic Four. And not just the 4 ones I spoke about, but some of the other ones as well. They really understood characters. So if you haven't read it, I definitely recommend picking up these books, checking them out, and learning about more deeply about the characters, especially for the stories that we just talked about. So I hope you guys have fun checking out these books, and I hope you also had fun talking comics. I'll see you guys later.